Wealth doesn't begin in the wallet. It begins in the mind, in the heart, in the silent habits a person cultivates when no one is looking. And one of these most powerful, most transformative habits is generosity. Not the generosity of those who give to show off, to appear, but the kind that comes from within, that springs naturally from those who understand that life gives back everything. What you give to the world gives back. And we're not talking about a fancy theory here to appear virtuous. We're talking about an invisible code that governs the prosperity of anyone who truly becomes wealthy, consciously, wisely, and with purpose. Generosity is an invisible seed, and every time you perform a generous act, you plant a new seed. But be careful, the harvest doesn't come from the same direction you planted it. The person you helped may never cross your path again, but the return comes, and it comes with force because the universe, or rather life, never fails. It has a precise memory. Everything you put out comes back, sometimes in unexpected ways, sometimes much greater than you imagined. And what few understand is that generosity isn't just a spiritual or ethical act. It's also a practical tool for growth. It changes your mental state. It modifies your vibration. It puts you on a frequency where money flows more naturally. And the reason is simple. When you're generous, you're saying internally and mostly unconsciously that you have enough, that you trust, that you are in abundance. People trapped in a scarcity mindset can't give anything. They withhold, they hoard, they hold on to every last penny because they believe deep down that there won't be enough. And this mindset creates a reality where there will in fact always be enough. Life confirms this belief. The mind says, there won't be enough, and life responds, okay, then there will be. But when you break this cycle with a generous gesture, something inside you is freed. It's as if you say to yourself, I have it, and because I have it, I can share it. And then the magic happens. Not the fantasy magic, but the real magic. The magic that comes from within, from a shift in perception, a shift in attitude. The world begins to see you differently. Money begins to flow more easily. Opportunities appear in ways you never expected. Before we begin with the deeper teachings, make sure you've already hit the like button, but only do this if you truly want to attract wealth into your life. And take advantage now and write in the comments, I'm ready to prosper. This is a commitment you make to yourself, a sign that your mind is open to learning, changing, and growing. Now stop for a moment and think, when was the last time you were generous to someone? It doesn't have to be with money. It could have been with attention, with time, with listening, with a sincere compliment, with a simple helping hand. And most importantly, how did you feel afterward? You probably felt light, at peace, perhaps even happy, without knowing exactly why. This is the power of generosity working within you. And this feeling is the beginning of the opening to prosperity. Because those who feel good about what they have attract more. Those who find pleasure in giving make room for receiving. That's how it works. What you need to understand is that generosity isn't about the other person. It's about you, about the kind of person you're becoming. Truly wealthy people, and here we're talking about both internal and external wealth, have a habit of giving, not because they have excess, but because it's part of their internal system. They understand that giving is an act of faith in abundance, that holding back is an act of fear, and fear pushes away everything that is great. Fear closes doors, generosity opens them. When you make generosity a habit, you silently shift your mindset. You begin to see opportunities where you once saw problems. You begin to attract people who resonate with what you're building internally. You begin to realize that life can be lighter, more fluid, more prosperous. And this doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. It's like training a muscle. At first, it may feel strange, even uncomfortable, but the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. And before you know it, you'll be reaping the rewards of this new way of living. Financial rewards, yes, because money always arrives where there's room for it to flow freely. Many people make the mistake of thinking they need to have a lot first before they can start giving, and that's a trap. The order is reversed. First you give, then you receive. First you plant, then you harvest. And this giving begins in the mind. It begins in the thoughts you have about money, about yourself, about others. If you think that giving is losing, you close the doors to abundance. But if you understand that giving is expanding, broadening, opening invisible channels, then you activate the cycle of wealth. So if you want to transform your financial life, start by noticing the small moments where you can be generous. Don't wait for a big opportunity. Start with what you have, with what you can, with what's within your reach right now. Because what matters isn't the material value of what you offer, but the energy you put into it. And when that energy is true, sincere, and free of ego, the universe responds. And it responds twofold, threefold, sometimes in ways you never imagined. Now, to reinforce this teaching, I want you to say out loud, yes, out loud, wherever you are, my generosity opens the doors to my wealth. Speak it firmly, with conviction, even if you don't yet feel it to be true. Because when you repeat this affirmation, you begin to reprogram your mind. You begin to break the invisible blocks that prevent money from arriving. You begin to create a new reality based on abundance, not scarcity. And here's a practical challenge. In the next 24 hours, find a way to be generous to someone. Any way. It could be a sincere compliment. It could be practical help. It could be sharing something useful. What matters is the gesture. Do it consciously, and then notice how you feel. And even more, notice what happens to you in the following days, because this simple gesture can be the first step toward profound transformation. You're here because you want more from life, because you're tired of living limited, trapped, suffocated by scarcity. So allow yourself to try new habits. Generosity is one of them, and it's not just any habit. It's a portal, a shortcut, a direct bridge between your current reality and the life you want to live. When we talk about generosity as a magnet for money, we're not exaggerating, much less romanticizing poverty with a help others and everything will work out rhetoric. We're talking about a functional and observable principle. Every time you act with genuine generosity, you're programming your mind for abundance. And this is a silent movement, almost imperceptible at first, but profoundly powerful over time. What few people realize is that generosity isn't just about what you do, it connects directly to what you believe. And beliefs are the invisible roots that support the tree of your financial life. Imagine you have a belief like, I never have enough. This phrase, even if not spoken aloud, is there, operating silently, guiding your decisions, your emotions, and most importantly, your actions. If you believe you never have enough, even when you do, you'll continue to act as if you don't have enough, and this mindset closes all doors to prosperity. Now think of generosity as a mental detox exercise. When you offer something, even a small one, you're telling yourself, I have enough to give. This simple act begins to dissolve that old belief of scarcity. It's as if you're reprogramming your mind to believe that you are an abundant person, that you live in a world of possibilities, and that there is indeed room for financial growth. This is why generous people tend to be more prosperous. They live from the feeling that the world is full, not empty, and life responds accordingly. Your mind is always listening to you. It pays attention to every thought, every emotion, every gesture. And it learns by example. Therefore, more than repeating positive phrases, it's essential to act in a way that's consistent with those phrases. There's no point in saying, I am abundant, and living in fear of spending, fear of helping, fear of sharing. Your behavior must confirm what you believe. And when you act generously, even in difficult times, your mind understands, we are safe, we can share, we can thrive. A very interesting shift occurs when someone incorporates generosity into their daily lives. Financial anxiety diminishes. The desperation to have more gives way to a steady, almost silent tranquility that comes from the certainty that everything is in motion, that everything flows. The person begins to realize that they don't need to chase money as if they were fleeing hunger. Instead, they realize that money begins to come to them, through connections, through ideas, through the right people appearing at the right time. And this happens because generosity breaks the logic of scarcity. The logic of scarcity says, first I receive, then I give. The logic of abundance, which is where true wealth manifests, says, I give because I trust, and because I give, I receive more. It seems simple, but this reversal of thinking completely changes the game. It's like turning the key in your mind, and when that key turns, life begins to organize itself differently around you. It's important to understand that generosity can also be silent. It doesn't have to be grand or public. Quite the opposite. The most powerful gestures are often those that no one sees, a word spoken at the right time, emotional support, encouragement, a sincere, I believe in you. All of this is generosity, and all of this changes the environment in which you live. When you become a person who spreads this kind of energy, you begin to be seen as someone of value. And money always follows value. Money is a consequence, never the cause. When you become a valuable person, money finds ways to reach you. It could be through a new job, a project that emerges, or an idea that turns into income. But the point is, money arrives because you created space. And one of the greatest creators of space is the habit of being generous. If you truly want to transform your relationship with money, start paying closer attention to what you give to the world. Giving generosity doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. It doesn't make you poor, it makes you powerful, because you stop being dependent on what the world can give you and become a provider of value. You start operating in the realm of those who have something to offer, and those who have something to offer attract. People trapped in a scarcity mindset often complain, "Oh, but if I give, no one will give back. No one will help me. I'm the only one who does for others." This mindset accurately reflects the mental prison of poverty because it's based on the immediate expectation of return, and true generosity isn't concerned with immediate return. It knows that return will come, yes, but at the right time, in the right way, from the right source. There's no need to control. There's no need to demand. Just trust. Of course, this doesn't mean being naive, putting yourself in abusive situations or giving more than you can. Generosity isn't self-sacrifice. It's balance. It's being aware that there's always something you can give, and that by giving, you grow. You grow from within, and this internal growth inevitably translates into external results. I want you to do an exercise right now. Visualize a situation where you can be generous in the coming days. Imagine what that moment will be like, how you'll feel, the impact it could have. Then write this idea down somewhere, and most importantly, put it into practice. Don't put it off, because the more you put it off, the more your mind reverts to the old pattern. And the idea here is to break this pattern, creating a new way of living and attracting prosperity. Remember, wealth begins long before the money arrives. It begins in your mind, in your attitudes, in the small gestures you repeat every day. And generosity is one of those gestures. A gesture that, when it becomes a habit, transforms your identity. And when your identity changes, everything around you changes too. True financial change doesn't start with a raise. It starts with an increase in awareness. And generosity is one of the most effective tools for expanding that awareness. It's what takes you out of survival mode and puts you in abundance mode. It's what reminds you every day that you don't need to compete. You don't need to struggle. You don't need to desperately chase after things. You need to create value. And creating value starts with what you give. Most people live trapped in a mindset they learned from an early age, that everything is difficult, everything is scarce, everything is earned only through great effort, pain, and sacrifice. And what does this have to do with generosity? Everything, because those who live believing that everything is scarce also believe they need to hoard everything, protect everything, hold on to everything for fear of losing it. This kind of mindset makes it impossible to practice true generosity, and consequently, it prevents wealth from flowing in. The poor mind sees generosity as a loss. The rich mind understands generosity as a bridge between where you are today and where you want to be. But this bridge is only built with consistency, repetition, and habit. Generosity isn't an event, it's a lifestyle, an attitude toward the world. And this lifestyle, over time, completely shapes your field of attraction. You stop attracting difficulties and start attracting ease. You stop attracting self-interested people and start attracting people aligned with your new vibration, and the transformation begins to become visible. The world around you begins to change because you've changed from within. A very important detail that few people realize. Generosity is not the same as charity. Charity often stems from a feeling of pity. Generosity stems from the recognition of one's own abundance. And herein lies the key. A generous person doesn't feel superior. They feel whole. They give because they are fulfilled, because they are at peace, because they know they won't lack. This changes everything. When you help someone, not to feel good, but because you truly feel you can, that you have enough, that you are in balance, the energy you send is completely different. It's clean, it's powerful, it's magnetic. There's an invisible force building around a generous person. It's a force that attracts attention, that brings opportunities closer, that makes it easier to close deals, make connections, and solve problems. Because generosity builds respect, it builds trust, it builds admiration. And all of this has inestimable value in the real world. People like this are sought after, remembered, recommended, and referred, not because they ask for it, but because they naturally generate value. And always remember, money follows value, never the other way around. When you begin to act generously consistently, you activate an invisible feedback loop, and this cycle is like a wheel. The more you move it, the more momentum it gains. At first, it may seem like it's not working, that you're giving, and nothing happens, but that's exactly where you're planting the strongest seeds. What separates those who thrive from those who remain stuck in scarcity is the ability to maintain the habit even without seeing immediate results. The harvest is certain, but the timing is different for everyone. People with a scarcity mindset are in a hurry. They want immediate returns. They lack the patience to plant. They want to reap today what they didn't even sow yesterday, and so they live frustrated, resentful, and bitter. Those who understand the game of abundance, on the other hand, plant with joy, plant with faith, plant with awareness. And this attitude, this tranquility, is already a sign that the mind is evolving. Generosity is an exercise in patience and trust, two virtues that every truly wealthy person has developed at some point along the way. Want a simple example of transformative generosity? Pay attention to how you treat people in your daily life. It may seem small, but it's not. How you treat the attendant, the driver, the person who responds slowly. Are you being generous with your attention, with your patience, with your kindness? Or are you always reactive, stressed, impatient? The way you treat others is a direct reflection of what you believe about yourself. If you see yourself as someone rich within, you don't need to humiliate, you don't need to vent frustrations, you don't need to prove anything. You simply are. And this simply being is what makes you magnetic. Generosity is one of the smartest ways to prepare yourself to receive more. When you create this habit, you automatically become more trustworthy, more emotionally mature, and better prepared to handle large amounts of money. Because money doesn't like chaos. Money doesn't like lack of control. It goes where there's structure, where there's calm, where there's emotional intelligence. And generosity is a daily practice to develop all of these things. You'll notice, over time, that you no longer react as you used to. You no longer explode over the slightest thing. You no longer hold grudges. Because you've understood that everything you hold inside, you also hold outside. Holding on to hurt holds on to money. Holding on to fear holds on to opportunity. Holding on to criticism holds on to evolution. Generosity is the art of letting go not only of material things, but also of feelings, thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors. It's living lightly, and lightness is attractive. That's why generous people seem to have a different kind of luck. It's not luck. It's that they've created enough lightness for life to flow with them, not against them. Now I want to invite you to do one more exercise. You don't have to say it out loud, but mentally say with conviction, I am generous because I trust in the abundance of life. Repeat this a few times. Let this phrase echo within you. Let it gradually replace that old voice that told you everything is difficult, that everything is painful. You no longer need that voice. It served you for a time. Perhaps it protected you in difficult times. But now the time has come to let it go, to make room for a new way of thinking and feeling. You'll notice that by practicing generosity, you begin to feel more alive. Because giving is connecting, and the more you truly connect with others, the more you connect with yourself. And this generates solid self-esteem, a self-confidence that no one can take away. Because it doesn't depend on what you have, but on who you are. This is the true power of generosity. It transforms who you are. And by transforming who you are, it transforms everything you attract. Life gives you back what you are, not what you pretend to be. And so the more generous you become, the richer you become, from the inside out. The scarcity mindset lives in a state of urgency. It's the kind of mind that never relaxes, that lives counting pennies, that observes others with envy or suspicion, and that can't see beyond the present. When someone like this hears about generosity, their first reaction is rejection. How can I give anything if I barely have anything for myself? This question seems logical, but it reveals a mental prison. And as long as the person lives trapped in this mindset, they will continue to go in circles, unable to understand why life doesn't change, why money is never enough, why everything seems harder than it should be. The secret lies precisely there. Generosity isn't something you practice because you have it to spare. You practice it because you want to change your mindset, because you want to expand, because you understand that giving is more than an external act. It's an internal movement of breaking with fear. When you donate something, no matter how small, you're saying to yourself, I'm not trapped, I trust. And this trust is a key. It opens invisible doors. It positions you in a new state of consciousness where money stops being a problem and becomes a tool. People who live in fear of lacking can't build anything great, because fear is an anchor. It pulls you down. It blocks you. It paralyzes you. Generosity, on the other hand, is the opposite. It's a lever. Every generous act you perform lifts you up. It strengthens you. It gives you a sense of autonomy, self-mastery, and power. Yes, power, because only those who feel strong inside are capable of being generous, even when they're not rolling in cash. But what does being generous mean in practice? It's looking around and asking, what can I offer today? It could be time. It could be attention. It could be listening. It could be knowledge. It could be a compliment. It could be emotional support. It could be an object. It could be money, if possible. The point is not the value of what you give, but the awareness with which you give it, the quality of your intention, and most importantly, the habit, because it is habit that builds character, and character that shapes destiny. You can practice generosity every day, in small doses, and each dose weakens the mental pattern of scarcity. Little by little, you begin to realize that there's more than you imagined, that opportunities are there, available, just waiting for you to align with them. And this alignment comes from your willingness to open yourself to others, to the world, to life. Generosity takes you out of survival mode and puts you in creation mode. Those who live solely concerned with survival are always on the defensive, always waiting for the next blow, always suspicious. This tires, it weakens, it prevents you from growing. Now those who live in creation, who are in the movement of offering something to the world, feel a different kind of energy, an energy that drives, inspires, and attracts. And that's when wealth begins to arrive, not because you forced it, but because you've built an internal foundation that sustains prosperity. Wealth is like water. It needs channels to flow, and the most powerful channels you can open within yourself are made through daily habits, the thoughts you choose to nurture, the emotions you choose to cultivate. And generosity is one of those channels. It shows the universe and yourself that there's room for more, that you're prepared to handle more, that you know how to use what you have, even if it's little. And when you know how to use the little well, life gives you much. Therefore, practicing generosity is a preparation for abundance. It's not a sacrifice, it's an investment. It's not a loss, it's a sowing. And the more you sow, the more you reap. It's inevitable. It may even take a while. It may seem like nothing is happening, but it is. Underground, where no one sees, the roots are growing, and when they're strong enough, what was invisible will become visible. And then people will say it was luck, but you'll know it was construction. Building a prosperous life starts within. It starts with the kind of thinking you have about money, about others, about yourself. And here's a truth that may hurt at first, but it frees you. As long as you hate those who have money, you'll never have money. As long as you think that all rich people are greedy, you'll never be rich, because no one wants to become what they despise. And generosity helps you heal this distorted view. It shows you that wealth and selfishness are not the same thing, that it is possible to have a lot and be generous, that it is possible to grow by helping, that it is possible to become rich ethically, with balance, with purpose. And what's more, it shows you that you can be that person too, that you don't have to repeat the story of scarcity you've heard your whole life, that you can create a new story where giving and receiving go hand in hand, where helping doesn't mean self-denial, where thriving doesn't mean stepping on others. You can write that story, and it starts with a simple gesture, offering something today, doing something good today, not because you want something in return, but because you understand that this is the way. Now I want you to take a deep breath and say to yourself, the more I give, the more I receive, and I give with joy. Feel this phrase enter you like a new command, because that's what it is, a new command for your mind, and the mind, as you already know, always obeys. It will begin to look for ways to confirm this new truth. It will begin to create situations where you can be more generous, and each of these situations will be an opportunity to build the rich person you are becoming. Keep practicing, even on the days when it seems difficult, even when you feel like you're giving more than you're receiving. Trust, because when you plant generosity, what comes back isn't just money. It comes back peace. It comes back clarity. It comes back strength. And all of this is essential to maintaining wealth when it arrives. There's a silent truth that almost no one teaches. Money likes movement. It dislikes stagnation, attachment, or rigidity. It's like water. When it flows, it purifies. When it stops, it rots. And generosity is one of the most powerful ways to put money in motion, not just physical money, but the energy that money represents. Because money is, at its core, a symbol, an external reflection of your ability to create, to contribute, to circulate value. When you understand this, everything changes. The problem is that most people have learned to relate to money as if it were something dirty, dangerous, almost an enemy. They grow up hearing that money causes conflict, that rich people are evil, that the world is unfair. And this creates a mindset where people unconsciously push away what they say they want. They say they want to be rich, but feel guilty when imagining a prosperous life. They say they want to earn more, but feel uncomfortable seeing someone successful. They say they want freedom, but live enslaved by the idea that everything is difficult, everything is too little, everything is for others, not for them. And this is where the power of generosity as a tool for liberation comes in. Because when you give something of value to someone, and here remember, value isn't just money, you break this internal prison. You say with your action, I have enough, I am enough, and I can share. This is much more than a nice gesture. This is mental reprogramming. This is training the brain to operate at another level of consciousness, a level where there is room to receive because you are no longer clinging on for fear of loss. A giving mind is a mind ready to receive. It sounds simple, and it is, but it's not always easy. Because to get there, you need to face your deepest beliefs. You need to challenge that fear that says, what if I don't have enough? You need to look in the mirror and recognize that for too long, you believed stories that weren't yours. Stories of failure, limitation, and resignation. Stories that have been passed down from generation to generation. But now, the time has come to break free from that. And generosity is the first step. When you act with generosity, you break the cycle of scarcity. And most importantly, you place yourself as the protagonist of your own life. You stop waiting for the world to change, for people to recognize your worth, for something magical to happen. You move, you create value, you activate the wheel of abundance. And this has enormous power, because when you take the first step, life responds. It always responds, not in the way you expect, but in the way you need. True abundance isn't just about accumulating, it's about flow. About allowing what comes in to also go out, and what goes out to make room for more. And this flow is built with daily habits, with intentional actions, with small gestures that together create a new identity. You don't become rich overnight. You become rich when you begin to think, feel, and act like someone who has already understood what it means to be rich. And that includes being generous, not as an obligation, but as a natural reflection of your new way of seeing the world. Now imagine a person who lives confined to the little they have, who constantly says, I can't, I don't have, I can't. This person, even when they receive something, cannot sustain it, because their mind is still operating in fear. They may earn, but they soon lose. They may receive, but they spend it with guilt. They may be lucky, but they can't repeat it. Because what defines what you sustain is not how much you earn, but how much your mind is prepared to sustain. And here's the secret. Generosity prepares your mind to sustain because it gradually teaches you not to cling, to trust, to relax, to relinquish control. And these are the same skills you need to develop to sustain a rich, light, and free life. Therefore, every time you are generous, you are training yourself for wealth. You are aligning yourself with the natural flow of prosperity. You are silently saying, I am worthy of receiving more. Generosity also has a direct impact on how others perceive you. Generous people are remembered, they are respected, they are admired, and this, in the real world, opens doors, because no one thrives alone. Everyone's financial life is shaped by the connections they have, by the opportunities that arise, by the alliances they build, and generosity is one of the quickest ways to create these true, solid, lasting connections. You've probably noticed that the most successful people tend to be the most open, the most willing to help, to guide, to teach. This isn't a coincidence. It's practice. It's vision. They understand that the more you give, the more you expand your sphere of influence. And the more influence you have, the more doors open. Money follows this energy. It goes where there is generosity, trust, and presence. It flees where there is fear, attachment, and desperation. So if you want to become a money magnet, start with the habit of generosity. Not because it's pretty, but because it's effective. Not because others expect it, but because you've chosen to live abundantly. because you've decided that enough is enough with scarcity, enough is enough with fear, enough is enough with surviving. It's time to live, to grow, to expand. Make a commitment to yourself now. Find at least one way to be generous every day, even if it's small, even if no one sees it. Do it for yourself, because ultimately you're rewriting the story of your mind. You're becoming the richest, freest, strongest version of yourself. And this version doesn't come out of nowhere. It's born from the habits you choose to cultivate every day. If there's one thing all truly prosperous people have in common, those who not only have money but also live with ease, peace, and gratitude, it's that they've learned to live with an open hand. They've understood something many still don't. What you hold onto with fear slips away, but what you share with courage grows. Life is a cycle. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is immovable. And everything you try to control too much ends up controlling you. This applies to relationships, emotions, and especially money. Those who haven't learned to be generous live in an invisible prison. They may accumulate certain amounts throughout their lives, but they will never experience the true pleasure of abundance. Because abundance isn't accumulation. Abundance is flow. It's trust. It's knowing you can give and still remain full. Often, the fear of giving stems from old traumas, stories of being lacking, situations where someone took advantage, moments where you tried to help and were let down. All of this leaves its mark, but you can't let these marks define the rest of your life. Because if you live protecting yourself from the past, you'll prevent the future from arriving. Generosity is an act of courage, a gesture of choosing not to be a prisoner of inherited scarcity. It's a break with the "I need to protect myself all the time" mentality. When you break free from this, you begin to see a different world, a world where there's room for you to grow, gain, contribute, and still remain at peace. Generosity also has a curious effect. It boosts your self-esteem. Because when you give something and see the positive impact it has, something inside you strengthens. You begin to realize your worth. You begin to see that you do have something to offer, that you're not small, that you're useful, that you can bring about transformation. This gives you a sense of true importance, not the kind that comes from appearance or status, but from your essence. And this solid self-esteem is an incredible foundation for sustaining wealth, because those who feel secure within themselves don't sabotage themselves when things start to go well. People who still have low self-esteem often live in a cycle of self-sabotage. They achieve something but soon lose it. They make money but spend it guiltily. They advance but pull the rug out from under themselves because deep down they don't feel worthy. Generosity helps heal this because it becomes the key to self-validation. When you see that you can help someone even with little, you begin to see yourself as someone of value. And this completely changes how you position yourself in the world. Notice how generous people tend to walk. They have a different look, a more relaxed body, a clearer energy. They don't live tense, complaining, feeling like the world is against them, because they're aligned with something greater. And it's not mysticism, it's practical reality. Generosity takes the focus off yourself all the time and expands your vision. You stop focusing only on your problems and start seeing opportunities to contribute. And the more you give, the more you receive. And the most interesting thing is that generosity doesn't need to be planned. It can be spontaneous. It happens when you're mindful, when you choose to act consciously, when you pay attention to those around you. How a small gesture can open a huge portal. A thank you said with presence. A you can do it said at the right time. A here I thought of you, with something simple but with sincere intention. All of this is generosity. And all of this transforms environments, brings people together and attracts prosperity. One of the biggest mistakes someone can make is thinking they'll only be generous when they're rich. This idea is a trap, because it places wealth as a condition, when in fact it's a consequence. Generosity needs to come first, because it prepares the ground for money to arrive. It's like tending the soil before planting the seed. If you wait for money to arrive before changing your mindset, you'll spend your whole life waiting. Now, if you change your mindset, if you start acting like someone rich, and generosity is one of the most important behaviors of the wealthy, then money will find a clear path to you. Imagine a life where you don't need to count coins, where you can buy without fear, help without hesitation, where you enjoy investing in other people, in projects, in dreams. This life begins within your mind. It begins with how you choose to see the world and your place in it. And if you truly want to live this new reality, you need to start behaving accordingly. This isn't pretending, it's anticipating. It's acting like the person you want to become, and that person, of course, is generous. Now think, who do you admire? Who do you consider a prosperous person? Pay attention, is this person generous? Most likely, yes, and this is no coincidence. Generosity is always present in the trajectory of those who have truly achieved something solid, because it builds trust, opens doors, and strengthens bonds, and money is a consequence of all this. When you become a trustworthy, present, conscientious, and generous person, you become a center of value. And everything that has value ends up attracting more value. Today, practice being intentionally generous, not just with money, but with attention, words, and support. And notice what changes. Notice how you feel. Observe your reactions. Notice how small actions can generate waves of change. This will show you in practice that you are already capable of generating abundance around you. And if you generate it around you, it's because you're already beginning to generate it within. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath and repeat to yourself, with every generous gesture, I open more space for wealth to enter my life. Let this phrase accompany you throughout the day. Every time the fear of giving appears, remember it. Every time doubt strikes, repeat it, because you are reprogramming your mind, and that requires consistency. But over time, this new mindset will become as natural as breathing. And when that happens, you'll realize it's not money that makes you generous, it's your generosity that makes money find you. Every time you act generously, you send a direct message to the universe, but especially to your subconscious. I am someone who lives in abundance. And that's not just nice to say, it's functional, because your subconscious is the one that controls most of your decisions, including those related to money. It's the one that decides, even if silently, whether you'll save, spend, invest, or waste. It's the one that chooses, by default, whether you'll act with fear or courage. And what few understand is that the subconscious doesn't listen to words. It reads actions. You can repeat affirmations all day long. You can tell yourself, I am rich, I am prosperous, I am abundant. But if your actions are based on fear, that's what your subconscious will record. Scarcity. It doesn't hear what you say. It feels what you do. And that's why generosity is so powerful, because it's not a speech, it's an attitude. It's the visible proof that you believe you have, and that you will continue to have it. And here comes something very important. Generosity isn't about quantity, it's about intention. You can give a large amount, but if you give with anger, fear, or attachment, it doesn't liberate you. It doesn't open any channels. But if you give something simple, with lightness, with gratitude, with awareness, it transforms you. Because what matters isn't how much you give, but what that action represents within you. Sometimes, a small help, a simple gesture, carries such a strong emotional charge that it completely changes your frequency. And it's this frequency that attracts everything. Notice how you feel when you act generously. Your chest opens, your mind calms, anxiety diminishes. It's as if for a moment you leave survival mode and enter contribution mode. And this mode is magical, because when you contribute, you grow, you expand. You enter a state where fear no longer rules, and where fear loses its power, prosperity gains ground. But be careful, don't confuse generosity with neediness. Many people, wanting to please others, end up sacrificing themselves. They do everything for everyone, give more than they can, say yes when they want to say no. This isn't generosity. This is a need for acceptance. And this also stems from scarcity. People want to be seen, they want to be loved, they want to feel useful. So they give everything, even what they don't have. And then they feel empty. They feel used. And worse, they blame the world for not reciprocating. But the problem isn't in the world. It's in the root of the act. True generosity is born of balance. It comes from someone who respects themselves, who cares for themselves, who knows their own limits. It's an act of someone who has, even if little, but who gives consciously, not to feel important, not to be accepted, but because they believe that life works best when there's exchange, when there's movement. And this awareness changes everything, because it protects you from giving beyond your means, and at the same time, it pushes you to continue giving whenever possible. Money, contrary to what many people think, isn't lost when you give it. It multiplies as long as it's given with the right intention, as long as you're not giving it out of fear, because fear closes the cycle, but trust keeps the cycle going. And the more you turn this cycle, the faster it gains speed. and the faster it goes, the greater the return. Now think about one thing. What would you like to attract in the coming days? It could be a new opportunity, unexpected value, an answer, a client, a solution. Now ask yourself, what can I offer today that aligns with this desire? This question is powerful because it takes you out of the role of someone who just waits and puts you in the role of someone who also delivers. And believe me, when you deliver something that aligns with what you want to receive, life's response is much faster. The exchange happens. The flow is activated. For example, if you want more recognition, start recognizing the people around you more. If you want more opportunities, start opening opportunities for others. If you want to receive help, be someone who helps. Not because you're manipulating the universe, but because you understand that the universe works by mirroring. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And when you become generous, you become abundant. And abundance attracts more abundance. Another important thing, generosity also means knowing how to receive. This may seem strange, but it's true. Many people know how to give, but don't know how to receive. When someone offers something, they refuse, avoid the conversation, and become embarrassed. This too is scarcity, because it's as if unconsciously the person is saying, "I don't deserve this," and this blocks the flow. Therefore, while you learn to give lightly, you need to learn to receive with gratitude, receive without guilt, receive with pleasure, because this is the other side of the same coin. Giving and receiving are part of the same system. Do you want to be a money magnet? Then start paying attention to both sides, what you give and what you allow to receive, and correct any imbalances. If you're giving too much without getting anything in return, perhaps you're giving with the wrong intention. If you're receiving too much and feeling uncomfortable, perhaps you need to work on your sense of worthiness, and it all starts with awareness, with observation, with a commitment to being honest with yourself. The path to wealth begins with this kind of honesty, because it sets you free. And when you free yourself from the obligation to appear to be something, you can finally become something. And in this new being, generous by nature, prosperity settles naturally, because it finds a home. It finds structure. It finds someone ready. Now close your eyes for a few seconds and mentally say, "I give with awareness, receive with gratitude, and live in flow with abundance." Repeat this a few times. Let this phrase settle within you, because it's not just a pretty phrase, it's a new mental code. And each time you activate this code, you open more space for money to come to you, not as a miracle, but as a righteous response to the person you're becoming. With each step you take toward a more generous life, you'll notice something subtle but profoundly transformative. Money begins to lose the emotional weight it once carried. That tension you felt thinking about bills, that constant fear of running out, that silent envy when seeing someone with more, all of this begins to fade. Not because you already have so much, but because you're becoming someone who trusts their own path, someone who understands that wealth is more about what you build on the inside than what you accumulate on the outside. Generosity, when practiced consistently, removes anxiety from the equation. This happens because it shifts focus. The anxious mind constantly focuses on what's missing. The generous mind learns to appreciate what it already has. And it's precisely this shift in focus that begins to open the doors to abundance. When you look at what you have with gratitude, you naturally want to share. And when you share, you reinforce the inner belief that you live in abundance. This feeling becomes a new mental pattern, and this pattern becomes the new magnet that attracts more and more prosperity. But it's important to make a distinction here. Generosity isn't the same as being nice. Often the nice person simply wants to be accepted, loved and seen. They give expecting something in return, and when they don't receive it, they become frustrated, withdrawn, and revolted. This isn't generosity. It's neediness, disguised as kindness. True generosity comes from a deeper place, a place of balance where you're not giving to be accepted, but because you already accept yourself, where you're not trying to buy affection, but simply letting value overflow from within. This distinction is crucial, because if you confuse one with the other, you'll end up exhausted. You'll feel like you're always giving and receiving nothing. You'll start to see generosity as weakness, when in fact it's strength. But this strength only exists when accompanied by awareness. You need to know why you're giving, and how far you can give. Because generosity isn't about nullifying yourself. It's about expanding yourself. It's about doing good without harming yourself. A powerful question that can help you maintain this balance is, what am I trying to fulfill by giving this? If the answer is fear, insecurity, or loneliness, then perhaps it's time to take care of yourself first. But if the answer is trust, gratitude, and love, then follow through. You're on the right path. Generosity born of inner peace is what bears true fruit, financial, emotional, and spiritual. And these fruits don't take long to appear. When you enter this flow, things begin to shift. People you never imagined begin to offer you help. Doors that were closed begin to open. New ideas emerge with clarity. The burden lifts. And you realize that, little by little, life is organizing itself in your favor. This isn't luck, it's alignment. It's a direct result of the new energy you're emitting. Generosity is also a way to broaden your perspective. When you share even a little, you step outside your individual world and begin to see the bigger picture. And this helps you perceive more opportunities. People trapped in scarcity have a narrow vision. They only see what's in front of their noses. Those who live generosity begin to see further. They begin to connect dots that previously went unnoticed. And it's in this broadening of vision that the greatest leaps in growth emerge. You begin to see solutions where before you only saw problems. You begin to realize that what you thought was a limitation was actually a bridge to something greater. You begin to understand that every generous gesture you make is connecting you to something you can't yet see. But it's coming. It's getting closer. It's just waiting for the right moment to manifest, but be careful. Don't fall into the trap of expecting something back from what you've given. This expectation is a silent saboteur. Many people become frustrated because they help someone and expect that same person to reciprocate, and when they don't, they feel betrayed. But life doesn't work that way. The return never comes from the same direction, and that's wonderful, because it shows that abundance is much greater than you imagine, that you can give here and receive there, that you can plant today and harvest where you least expect it. This freedom is what makes the process magical. So, practice detachment from reward. Do good and let go. Help and move on. Share and trust, because when you do this, you show that you're not controlling, that you're not desperate, that you don't need to prove anything. And it's precisely this tranquility that attracts more. Desperation repels, trust attracts, and generosity is a gesture of trust in practice. Another important point is frequency. Generosity isn't an occasional event. It's a lifestyle. It's a habit. It's something that needs to be cultivated every day, even in small ways. Don't wait for a big opportunity to be generous. Start now, with what you have, with those around you. True transformation happens in small, intentional acts repeated. For example, instead of ignoring someone, choose to listen attentively. Instead of withholding a compliment, choose to say it. Instead of thinking, "It's not my problem," choose to help where you can. It's these small choices that together create a new identity. An identity of someone who is a source, not just a receiver. Someone who doesn't depend on the world to give, but who gives because they choose to live that way. And that choice changes everything. Right now, commit to an action. Do something generous today, something simple, intentional, direct. Don't overthink it. Just do it, and then observe. Don't expect an immediate reward. Just observe how you feel, what happens around you, how things begin to flow. This gesture may seem small, but it is the beginning of a new life pattern. Repeat quietly, if possible now. I live in abundance, so I share lightly. Feel the power of this phrase. Let it remind you in moments of fear that you don't need to hold on to what you have, because life always gives back, and always gives back with more. With each passing day, more people are realizing that the path to prosperity isn't just about techniques, formulas, or external strategies. It involves, first and foremost, internal alignment, a silent transformation that happens within the mind, and especially within the heart. And when we talk about generosity as one of the fundamental habits for attracting wealth, we're talking precisely about this alignment, because no one sustains true prosperity without first becoming worthy of it. And generosity is one of the clearest criteria life uses to measure this worthiness. Have you ever stopped to wonder why some people make money easily while others struggle, never quite getting anywhere? The answer lies not only in what they do, but in who they've become. A generous person develops a strong, confident, and positive identity. They naturally attract people, ideas, connections, and solutions, because everything about them exudes value. And where there is value, there is prosperity. Money is a consequence of the value you generate and the energy you carry. Therefore, cultivating generosity is much more than a moral act. It's an investment in yourself. But here comes a hard truth that needs to be faced. Many people are afraid to be generous because deep down, they think they'll be taken advantage of. If I give too much, they'll take advantage. If I'm generous, they'll think I'm stupid. If I help, no one will help me later. These thoughts are the portrait of a mind traumatized by scarcity, a mind that has learned that giving is putting itself at a disadvantage. But this is only true when generosity isn't accompanied by awareness. Because giving with awareness doesn't weaken you. It strengthens you. You don't give because you're weak, but because you're strong enough not to cling, strong enough to trust that life sustains you. And here it's important to bring up something essential. Generosity is not a path of suffering. It's not about giving until you're exhausted. It's not about constantly saying yes when your whole body screams no. True generosity is based on balance. You help, yes, but you also respect yourself. You give, but you don't abandon yourself. You share, but you also replenish yourself. This awareness is what transforms the act of giving into a bridge to abundance, not a self-sabotaging trap. That's why, as you develop the habit of generosity, you also develop the habit of self-observation. Because you need to be constantly aware. Am I giving because I trust or because I'm afraid? Am I helping because I want to or because I need to feel needed? Am I sharing out of love or out of a need for acceptance? Honest answers to these questions will show you the root of your actions. And the more mindful you are, the more powerful your gesture becomes. And this is where the magic happens. When you start giving consciously, you free yourself, you stop expecting immediate returns, you let go of the need for control. You don't get frustrated when you don't receive gratitude because you didn't give it to them. You simply offered, and it's this lightness that opens the doors to wealth because money loves lightness. It escapes tension, despair, and pressure, and approaches where there is trust, fluidity, and clarity. You've probably heard someone say, "The more I give, the more I receive." It may sound like a cliché, but it's a reality for those who live by this principle. People who give generously don't become poorer, they become richer, in every sense, because they're in tune with a type of energy that attracts what's good, what's fair, what's prosperous, and this energy is rare. That's why it's so valuable. Now think, do you know someone who even with little lives a light, smiling, confident, generous life? That person has something special, doesn't they? It's called inner abundance. And this abundance over time becomes outer abundance, because what you build within manifests itself without. It's inevitable. A rich mind can't live a poor life for long, just as a poor mind, even winning the lottery, will eventually return to scarcity. Because external reality is merely a reflection of your internal pattern. So if you want to change your life, change what you cultivate within yourself. And generosity is one of the first habits to be planted. Don't wait until everything is sorted out to begin. Start now. With what you have, with what you can. Give attention, give words of encouragement, give sincere support, give something useful, give your presence, and watch what comes back. You'll begin to notice doors that seemed locked begin to open. People you never imagined begin to seek you out. Solutions appear more easily. Money begins to flow, not by magic, but by synchronization, because you've become someone life can trust, and when life trusts you, it delivers more. Because it knows you won't hold back but will make good flow. So today, look around you, see what you can offer, and do it with intention. Don't wait. Don't complicate things. Just do it. Even if it's small. Small things done consciously have more power than big things, done out of obligation. Repeat mentally now. Everything I give returns multiplied, and I am ready to live in abundance. Feel the weight of these words. And start acting like someone who already lives this truth, because deep down you're not creating something new. You're simply awakening something that's always been there within. Your power to create value, transform realities, and live a rich life, in every sense. There's a silent transformation that happens within you when generosity becomes a habit, not an exception. At first it may seem like it doesn't make much of a difference. You help here, offer something there, listen to someone, donate something, share an idea. But little by little, something begins to change. Not on the outside, but on the inside. And it's this inner change that creates the solid foundation for wealth to finally find a home in your life. Many people spend their lives trying to attract money, but they do so from a place of desperation. They are in pain, in urgency, in need. Their minds are constantly screaming, "I need it, I deserve it. Why isn't the money coming?" And the problem lies precisely in this internal scream. Because everything that comes with desperation comes crookedly and disappears quickly. Generosity, on the contrary, soothes. It silences the urgency. It replaces the feeling of lack with a sense of trust. And this trust changes everything. When you live in scarcity, every coin feels like a risk. Every expense feels like a bottomless pit. And in this state, it's impossible to think about helping someone, offering something, contributing anything. But when you start practicing generosity, even in small doses, you send a new message to your mind. It's okay. We won't run out. We can give. This message begins to alter your decisions, your behaviors, and even your attitude toward life. And here's a powerful point. Generosity activates your sense of worthiness. Many people don't thrive not because they lack the capacity, but because deep down, they don't believe they deserve it. They sabotage themselves. They say they want it, but run away when the opportunity presents itself. They say they're ready, but hesitate when it comes to making the decision. And this happens because there's an inner voice telling them, it's not for me. Generosity helps silence that voice, because when you give lightly, without guilt, without fear, you're saying, without realizing it, I trust myself, I am worthy. And this silent affirmation, repeated every day through actions, reprograms your mind with a power far greater than any sentence read aloud. The secret is repetition. No one transforms with a single gesture. It's habit, consistency, and persistence that shape the new you. And when you choose to be generous every day, you're making a choice that goes beyond the moment. You're choosing the kind of person you want to be. And this new identity is what attracts a new kind of life. The opportunities you long for, the invitations you'd like to receive, the money you want to see in your account, all of this is waiting for you to become the person who knows how to handle it maturely, balanced, and generously. Because money is just a tool. It doesn't solve anything by itself. It only amplifies what already exists within you. If you're insecure, it will amplify that insecurity. If you're selfish, it will amplify that selfishness. But if you're generous, it will amplify that generosity. And that's why life often withholds certain blessings. It knows there's not yet a structure within itself to handle them. But when you start practicing generosity consistently, life realizes, now there's structure, now there's space, now that person can receive more. And it's at that moment that everything begins to change. Because life is like a mirror. It reflects who you are, not what you say you want. You can ask for wealth with your mouth, but if your mind vibrates with scarcity, the answer will be silence. Now, when you begin to act like someone who already lives in abundance, and being generous is one of those actions, the answer comes. Because there is coherence, because there is truth, because there is preparation. This change doesn't depend on external conditions. It doesn't depend on having a better job, a bigger house, or more connections. It depends on you, only you. The change begins in your way of thinking, your way of acting, your attitude toward the world. And when you understand this, you stop waiting, stop complaining, stop blaming others. You take the reins, you take command. And this attitude is, in itself, a call for wealth to come your way. One of the biggest mistakes people make is imagining that being generous means diminishing yourself, becoming submissive, accepting everything. This is a huge mistake. True generosity requires strength. It comes from a place of inner abundance. Only those who have a lot inside can give freely. Those who still live in need give with regret, calculation, and fear. And this isn't generosity. It's an exchange in disguise. It's an expectation of something in return. True generosity is unhurried. It can't be earned. It gives because it overflows, because it believes that the more you give, the more you have, because it knows that life responds precisely to the energy you carry. And this certainty, this peace, this balance, these are the qualities that make money feel comfortable by your side. Because money, remember, is movement, and it needs space, fluidity, trust. Now stop for a moment and observe what within you is still stuck in scarcity. When are you afraid to give, to help, to share? In what situations do you act with calculation, as if the world will let you down if you trust too much? These moments are invitations to healing. They are opportunities in disguise, because it is precisely at these points of resistance that transformation can begin. What you resist persists, but what you accept and work with dissolves. So, start today. Choose a gesture, just one, and practice it with intention. Give something to someone, do something for someone, without expecting anything in return, just because you can, just because it represents who you are becoming. Just because this is the seed that will, at some point, grow into a rich, abundant, lasting harvest. And repeat clearly now, out loud if possible, I become richer with every act of generosity because I trust the flow of life. Feel this phrase as a reminder, a new starting point, a new chapter. If you want to hear more audios like this, click on the playlist I left on the screen. See you there.